What's up, everyone? This is the Fraser podcast, and today I've got Josh Barnes, who is going to be going through some fantasy football boom, bust, buy low, sell high candidates. We had some mic issues, which was on my end, so I apologize if this is your first time listening. This podcast is going to sound a little rough on my sound end. I tried to make it work, but maybe re-record a little bit, but it's still entertaining, still good. We fought through it. It doesn't sound too terrible, but it's not as clear as it normally should, so I apologize in advance. We were going to talk about fantasy commandments, but we just talked too much about 5 incredible buy low and 5 awful sell high candidates for fantasy football. So fantasy commandments, that'll be a podcast we do later. Please enjoy it. If you want to read all about it, faneverland.com is the new sports website, which is everything sports, but right now we're hitting the NFL hard, as you can imagine. Enjoy faneverland.com, and let's get it started. I don't know how to make the noises on the editing software to hey, we're starting something new, so I'm doing my own. After the Kobe Bryant thing.
Yeah, you were like, okay, well, I was wrong.
No. People will had my back too. I felt like young people were Kobe Bryant pro. But welcome, everyone. This is the Fraser podcast. I'm with Josh Barnes. Josh, what's your middle name? I almost said it. I should know this.
Lee.
It's Malik?
Lee. Joshua Lee.
Oh, I thought it was Lee. So then my other friend is Joshua Lee too, and his last name is Carney. So I was thinking, he kind of sounds like a guy who would shoot Biden, like Joshua Lee Carney.
That's actually literally shooter name.
Yeah.
The worst part is Lee is probably the most popular, late 80s baby name, middle name. Like every person I know born in the late 80s is 30% of them have Lee as their middle name.
You're like the hot white trash girl with Lynn.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like a bad episode of Ted.
Yeah, exactly. That's incredible. Well, not only I knew it was Lee too, but just the other Josh, white Josh, got me confused. It's my second favorite Josh. He did.
I hope he sees that.
Yeah,
the second favorite.
I'll send it to him. He knows. I hope there's not a third or a fourth Josh I'm forgetting. I don't think there is. Now it's even worse if I said that and there is. Fuck it.
Not for me.
Yeah, you're number one. We're talking fantasy football and the essentially not sleepers busts. We're doing it by sell high, buy low, or buy low and sell high. So people were buying at a value of their ADP that we think, they're ranked 10th, but we think, they're ranked 50th. We think they're going to be 20th. Because we really love their value, or vice versa, they're ranked 10th, and we think they're going to go 40th because they're not as good as everyone thinks. We also have some fantasy commandments, which we talked a little bit off air about, just things not to do, things to do. Josh, do you have any things before you could just hop into it, or?
No, man, let's talk fantasy. I'm happy that we're doing this because I'm in at least one league with you.
Yeah.
And so being able to at least get one person's idea, who they are going for in the draft, is just going to help me.
So I'm glad you said that. I have it written in one of my articles that this is the absolutely worst thing I've ever done. Because I wrote an article of this whole thing, and it's now all of our friends are just going to sewer us in the auction draft. So it's yeah. And not only that, it's at least that's 40 to 50 listeners we'll have,
I was just hoping that our friends wouldn't listen to it and I would just learn, but that's very naive. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So, we want ROI, return on investment, ADP. If you don't know, everyone should know it's average draft position. So I've kind of got ESPN as where we, they're being drafted here, but I think they're going to go here. PPR league, because PPR leagues are the most common now. So we're using PPR leagues for this exercise. And all right. Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll do my first one. I do want to caveat, I'm glad you mentioned that we're going off of ESPN because obviously depending on what league you're in, it could be completely different within 20 to 30 different spots for ADP.
Yeah.
So the first, I'm gonna start with buying, right?
Yeah, let's do buying.
My first player that I'm buying, and it's actually like a combo. There's
Ooh,
two guys who I like, and they're kind of in the same offense. It's Gus Edwards
I was
and J.K.
good one.
Um, J.K. Dobbins ADP in ESPN is 132. Now, obviously, he hasn't done anything in the last 2 years. He had an Achilles, he had an ACL. He's coming off some stuff.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because Greg Roman is now the offensive coordinator with the Chargers. He has history in San Francisco with Jim Harbaugh. He was also Gus and JK's offensive coordinator in Baltimore, where they, you know, started, and that's the only place they played.
Yeah.
I think I've always been high on JK. I think his ceiling is high, his floor is very low. And the same with Gus for getting touchdowns. Austin Eckler's out of there. They're going to be a run heavy team. They were when Greg Roman was in San Francisco. All they could do was run the ball in Baltimore. It was some of the most boring games I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So they're going to get a lot of touches. And if JK is healthier, it's going to be a steal. And then Gus is a beast, and he's probably one of the more underrated running backs in the league.
Yeah, they didn't make my list, but they were definitely on the list of. I was going to say when you were about to say it's two people, I was about to guess it because I'm completely with you. Yeah, ESPN has them 42nd running back for JK and 39th running back for Gus Edwards. But like you said, like let's say you're in a auction draft, just picking numbers, you can spend $40 on Derrick Henry, or you can spend $10, let's say, on both those players each. Five each. Maybe it's 15.
I agree completely, and I'm glad you made that point. Maybe don't compare them to what the guy who's gonna lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns here. But if you don't hit on Derrick Henry, those are some good guys to fall back.
Yeah, like Joe Mixon's 11, Travis Etienne's 10, Isaiah is 9. Also, you get a little bit of health insurance. So one goes down. Like, let's say you spend all your money on Pacheco, Henry, Kyron Williams. They get hurt, you're screwed. You get both of Edwards, Dobbins. One gets hurt, you're fine. And then I think you probably were going to mention like Harbaugh, Michigan. Everywhere's been run heavy offenses, run, run, run. He's really big into just old school smash mouth football. Yeah, I love that one.
Part of it, ironically, and before we go to the next player, it almost made me want to fade Justin Herbert just because Greg Roman, like, this guy, he couldn't do it with Lamar Jackson. I don't know if he could do it.
Yeah.
But Harbaugh's a quarterback whisperer, so I'm excited to see how it works out.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting team to watch. I have them as one of my biggest risers. I mean, not hard to rise. Whatever their record was last year is pretty shit.
I think they were close to 500. Seven.
Yeah. No, 5-12.
5-12.
Yeah, they're bad. So it's not hard to beat that. So I bet they get close to 500 this year. Absolutely.
Wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. My number one. Well, I've got a few, but I'm gonna go with Josh Jacobs with the Packers. Guess how old?
Wait, you're selling or buying Josh Jacobs?
Sorry. Good. I am buying Josh Jacobs to crush his ADP. Right now, he's going RB 15, ADP 41. I have him. I think he's going to be top 5 running back and ADP top 20. Guess how old Josh Jacobs is?
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head. In my mind, he is 27.
Oh, I mean, that's good. I would have guessed 28 or 29. He's 26.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem like he's been around for quite a long time.
He started for 4 to 5 years in Oakland, and he was better than bad for sure. Most years, he was really good.
And so, I mean, still young. And I just think me and you, I mean, we're not obviously super athletes. We understand sports where I feel like a lot of people don't. My big thing is running back has to be the worst position in sports. You're just running through a wall for the worst amount of money. I couldn't imagine having to do that and be less mature. Right now, what I hate is old people like us and people older than us. oh, if I was playing blah, 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 when we forget what shitheads we were when we were like 23, 22, 24, 25. So my point being is like, he's 26. Do you want to run through the wall for the Raiders year after year? He led the league in rushing 2 years ago when the Raiders were 6-10. So I mean, last year he was hurt a little bit. The team seemed like it was just dysfunctional. I just think if I'm a young player, you got to be a little self-preservation mode. You know what? Travis Kelce said he was in self-preservation mode last year, and people are like, "Oh, that's fine." Where if Jacob said that, he'd be like, "He doesn't care about the team." Blah 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 blah. But my point back to this is now Jacobs is on the best team he's ever been. I have the Packers as second in the NFC. I think they're going to win the division. They're my breakout team. They're my Eagles from 2022, my Lions from 2023. I'm high on them, even though as a Vikings fan, it hurts to say.
That's literally what I was just thinking.
Yeah. So I just think he's going to just kill it. They're also going to be ahead a ton. They'll be running the ball.
Yeah, it sounds like you're just high on the Packers in general.
Yeah.
I want to point out I love that. I think it's a good fit, the signing with him there.
Mm-hmm.
The offense is powerful. Jordan Love has a million receivers at his disposal, so they're going to be spread out, and he's not going to face a ton of 8-man boxes.
Exactly.
He's going to have room to run. He's a great catch out of the backfield guy. If it's a PPR, he's probably not the best PPR running back, but still solid.
Yeah.
I don't. That's a great player to buy for sure.
Yeah, I could when I saw his RB15, and I'm like, I literally think he can be top 5, especially someone always gets injured. Obviously, he could get injured, but there's going to be injuries to running backs. I just see him popping up. And yeah, I see the Packers always playing from in front, which means rushing the ball, and yeah,
love that. Dope. I'm gonna jump to the next player I'm buying.
Yeah,
is Courtland Sutton. Now, yes, I'm a Broncos fan.
Oh,
Part. It's not a homer pick. I'm buying Courtland Sutton for a lot of reasons. One, the quarterback play cannot be any worse than it's been over the last 2 years. No shade to Russ, but shade to Russ.
Yeah,
the Broncos announced Bo Nix as a starting quarterback. I mean, the guy's damn near 30 years old. He's almost a seasoned vet as a rookie.
Yeah.
And you know, the way he performed in the preseason, you would at least give you a glimmer of hope that he can make a pass down the field, not just check down and take sacks. So anything better than last year will be an improvement, essentially, obviously. But
Yeah.
I like Courtland. I think he's going to have a much better year as the Broncos' number one receiver.
Not to put you on the spot, do you have I always like when there's players that had pedigree that you always forget they had pedigree. Was Sutton how was he in college? I feel like you know all about the Broncos. Do you have a Sutton story or Sutton inside info where he was like, this dude's a dog?
I mean, so he kind of flew under the radar. I think he was at SMU, and he was, I don't know, second round draft pick. Like he was a guy. I remember. Oh, funny story. I remember we were at a Pro Bowl in Orlando, and it was Courtland Sutton's first Pro Bowl, and he was, I don't know, second year player, was a young guy, and he was just wasted out of his board. And we were at Universal Studios, and it was an event and free food, and everyone's there and hanging out. He just got plastered, and I was like, you know what? I get behind. Granted, you're 23 years old ish. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do. So I'm a fan, and hopefully this doesn't go anywhere and no one gets mad. He's a 23-year-old kid in his free time having a drink.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, big fan of his. I think most of his major highlights came in his first couple of years with diving, ridiculous catches in the end zone, mossing people. I'm a fan of his, and I think he's going to have a big year.
Yeah, and he's the only receiver there right now, right? They got rid of Judy, and who else is there?
So Tim Patrick is there, and then they have a couple younger guys that they drafted. A kid out of Oklahoma a couple years last year that they drafted who is promising. But to my point, his ADP is 116.
Yeah.
For a number one wide receiver, he'll I think be a solid wide receiver 2, a high upside if he can get there. Otherwise, a really, really strong flex.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because he's a ESPN has him 46 receiver. I mean, that's behind Lad McConkey, Keon Coleman, Romeo Dunze, DeAndre Hopkins, who's second fiddle now there, and yeah.
So that it's almost like calling Cortland Sutton a wide receiver 1 in the NFL a sleeper.
Yeah.
And that's also saying that if he's wide receiver 46 as a wide receiver 1, then there are 14, 13 other wide receiver 2s in the league who are going to do better than him, which is like that's a tough sell. So I think he's going to perform well.
All right. Before we get to the next one, I had a question about that. How do you see the preseason? Do you care about it? Like, what do you think? Like, even I'm sure you talked with Calais about this from a fantasy perspective. I just don't know if I've ever been like, oh yeah, like maybe the first time you watch preseason, you're like, oh my god, that guy's going to be amazing. You know?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that. That was one of my fantasy commandments, and we'll talk about those later, perhaps. Is preseason is a moment to scout for fantasy, but the problem is you have to take it with a grain of salt, and I think you really have to be analytical about it. Like, is this guy going up against a bunch of third stringers right now?
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams had some amazing highlights the other day in preseason. It was against the third string Bengals or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much weight do you put in that when it's the first team offense versus the third team?
Yeah.
So I think contextually, you have to put everything into context. But I mean, years ago, do you remember Victor Cruz blew up in preseason, and then he turned into be a multi-time Pro Bowler?
Yeah, that's like
there's
a diamond in the rough.
Perhaps, I mean, if I had time to prepare for that question, I would have brought more.
Yeah,
just
sure.
Top of my head.
So you went back 12 years as Victor Cruz. I appreciate it.
Probably longer than 12.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I use it as scouting every year. I'm like, okay, who's getting carries? Who looks good? So that's my POV.
Yeah, I just can never tell because I even think it's easier like in the NBA because there's less players. Like in the NFL, there's a 1,000 players. You're like, I don't know who's it. Or at least the NBA, you know the names. Okay, he played good, but even then, you kind of throw that out because there's always some guys who are good in college who beat up on other guys who were in college in the summer league in the NBA, but then come, the actual thing, they're just regular dudes like Jimmer Fredette, amazing college player, obviously.
Man, Jimmer they couldn't even win a 3-on-3 gold medal.
Yeah.
Man. I've never seen a more dramatic fall off. Well, we'll talk about that in another podcast. Holy
cow. So my next pick for a player I'm buying low on who I think is going to crush his ADP, Trevor Lawrence. He is going QB 18, ADP 165. I think he's going to be half both of those. 85 ADP and top 10 quarterback. Guess how old Trevor Lawrence is. Let's play this game again.
I feel like so he's a rookie quarterback. He's still on his first contract. I'll say 26.
24 years old.
Eek.
Trevor Lawrence is 24 years old.
He's got time, man.
He had a college record of 34-2. I bring this up, and you already know the answer to this question, I'm sure, but want to know who's 23 years old, 1 year younger, is a rookie in the NFL this year, had a collegiate record of 37-18, plays on an atrocious team, and is being drafted 5 spots ahead of Trevor Lawrence. This man is being drafted 5 spots ahead of Trevor Lawrence. It is insane. And that is Jaden Daniels.
He also a Heisman winner. Yeah.
And I mean,
I have a lot of thoughts on that. One, and we'll circle back to this. People get burned from poor performance. So last year, Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars hype was through the roof. They're like, yo, they got Calvin Ridley. They got the kid from Arizona that they signed.
Christian Kirk.
They had so many weapons. They got Evan Ingram. They just got, ETN's healthy. their offense should be a juggernaut, and then they're like, they're pretty good. They're all right.
Yeah.
And so then guys, people who drafted him last year were like, he wasn't it.
Yeah.
And so I think people were excited about Jaden Daniels' running ability. Major fantasy points there. Jalen Hurts. I mean, obviously he does the Philly butt push.
Yeah, and has 50 pounds on Jaden Daniels. But I've got a whole Jaden Daniels. You know where I'm going on in the next sell high, so we can table Jaden Daniels. But I thought that was, even before I'm a Jaden Daniels. I'm not even a hater. Nice kid, all that kind of stuff. Just as fantasy perspective, I couldn't believe that Trevor Lawrence was only a year older than him. He's been in the league for, I thought, 4 years, 3 years, but it's been 3 years. Crazy. So Trevor Lawrence entering his 4th year in the NFL, and he's ranked 5 below. This is where I was going to go. He finished QB 12 last year and QB 7 2 years ago. So you think, he had a shitty year because, just like you said, they're going to be incredible. He's going to be a top 5. He's going to be a top 3. And then he let us down being QB 12 or QB 7, which is still great considering he was 23 years old and 22 years old at the historically worst franchise in the NFL. And he was under, what's his name, like the worst coach of all time in 2022 for that year. So I just think you can also count me as a person who always drafts him in at least one of my leagues and pays a premium and, is upset. So I'm this guy. I'm being that guy, like, this is the year. This is the year. So they added Brian Thomas Jr. Sure, they lost Calvin Ridley. Not my favorite rookie. I think he's going to be a top 3 rookie. Brian Thomas Jr. They added Gabe Davis, Devin Duvernay. So they've got some nice pieces around him.
It sounds like the same story as last year, though.
Yeah, but he's a year older. He was only 23.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually appreciate that angle and him having another year in the offense. I think the offense was new to him. I like their potential. Their division is growing increasingly tough, I think, with Houston. But I don't think the jury's out on Indianapolis and Tennessee. I don't think they're doing anything either. So
I think that's why I have him as someone I'm buying low, because he's QB 18 right now when he just was QB 12 and he's QB 7 before that, a year older. I'm like, what are we doing here? How's he going to drop off? People going ahead of him, Aaron Rodgers, 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who was 10th outside the top 10. Sorry, he was 11th in 2022 for fantasy points for a quarterback when he was playing with Devontae Adams and the Green Bay Packers. Now he's 40 years old, Achilles, and he's on the Jets, which, I mean, obviously they could be good, but still the Jets. Joe Burrow, let's hope his wrist is recovered from an injury that a quarterback and a pitcher have never played.
Just throwing shade.
Yeah. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Kirk Cousins are all going before Trevor Lawrence.
I think it's a solid assessment. Yeah. I think you're right. I think he'll finish much higher than his ADP.
Yeah.
How much higher? It'd be definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Jumping to my last pick for who I'm buying. This is a weird one for me. I'm buying Dak Prescott. Now, to your point, I hear everything you're saying about Trevor Lawrence. I think Dak Prescott, one, I'm a fan of getting any fantasy player who is in their contract year.
Ooh,
he knows he's about to get paid. He wants to stay in Dallas, I presume. And Jerry Jones, I don't know what the hell Jerry Jones is doing down there. Not signing CD, not signing Dak. Michael Parsons is coming up. And Jerry Jones is hanging out.
Yeah.
So I think players in their contract years blow up. And I personally love to draft guys who are like, yo, I'm chasing this bag. I'm looking for lifetime financial security. Yeah. His ADP on ESPN is 65, which is fine. It's not bad. It's probably right where he should be. Yeah. I just think he's going to have a good year and outperform it. If you don't get one of the elite quarterbacks early, it's a great place to fall back to.
Yeah, I mean, I think because he's right now he's QB 8 on the ADP. Where do you think he's going to go in the QB realm?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think so. QB 8. I mean, that's if you're in a 10-team league, that means you have like the third worst fantasy quarterback, which is
Yeah,
like shocking.
yeah,
Josh Allen is obviously going to be up there. Jalen Hurts is going to be up there. Tua,
mm-hmm.
who's been performing incredibly the last couple of years, he just got paid, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll give him top five.
Okay. I'm torn on my next buy low of who to talk about. Maybe I'll breeze through two just because one's repeating a team, which I've already kind of gone on. But let me just say Jordan Love. I've already said the Packers are going to do well. His QB 10 ranking right now, ADP 84. I think he's going to be top 5 quarterback. Big facts I've got for you. Jordan Love started for the first time last year. He had a rough, brutal start to the season. He still ended up QB 5 in points per game, and he finished second in the league in passing touchdowns in his first year starting. So I don't get how he was QB 5 last year and now how he's going to be 10 this year. He's not going to get worse, and especially when there's a lot of running quarterbacks ahead of him. And I'm pretty sure at least 1 to 3 of them is not going to play an entire season. Um, so I'm all in on the Packers. A quick betting nugget on the Packers. So Vegas has them at 9.5 wins. They were a 9-team win last year. This year, if you look at their schedule, I won't go through it, but there's an easy 10 wins, a pretty easy 11, and like I think they go 12 wins. So yeah, you can check out the new website, by the way, Josh, faneverland.com, faneverland.com. I've got the full list of their breakout and everything else. So I just see good things for them. And my other one, just to breeze through, since I breezed through that one, was Aaron Jones with the Minnesota Vikings, which I guess also stays in that Green Bay realm. Love him. I could go in for reasons. His last 2 games, I would have thought again he's like 32, 33. He's 29 this year. His last 5 games, he had a 100-yard game rushing alone, which included NFC Championship game against the Niners and the divisional round game, 118 yards against the Cowboys, was it? So he's still running again, in important games. It's not like he's just rushing for terrible numbers. So, yeah,
I like that. I think that's aligned with the Josh Jacobs pick.
yeah,
Opportunity is going to be there. I'm worried about him because of the quarterback situation.
yeah.
I think Sam Darnold, jury's out. I've always liked Sam Darnold, ironically.
Hmm.
It hasn't really performed up to snuff, and so I don't know how that's going to work for him.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
one
hope.
one point that
Go
I want
ahead.
to make out on uh, just an interesting little thing about Green Bay. Matt LaFleur is an amazing offensive coach. If we're throwing little stats and tidbits, Matt LaFleur was on the 2013 Washington, at that time Redskins, coaching staff under Mike Shanahan. Do you know how many amazing offensive minded and defensive minded coaches were on that coaching staff? I'm going to list them out. Raheem Morris, head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Mike McDaniel, head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Kyle Shanahan, coach of the 49ers. Sean McVay, coach of the Rams. And Matt LaFleur, coach of the Packers. And they barely made the playoffs.
Yeah. I remember seeing that. They showed like a clip. I couldn't remember how many it was, but it's crazy how they all came from that coaching tree. Which
Wild.
another question I had for you written down, which this is in favor of the coaching tree. What are your thoughts? Because I always read, and in this instance, it was the Atlanta Falcons, and it was like, oh, they're just coming from the Sean McVay coaching tree, and I'm like, so, like, so many people came from the Bill Belichick coaching tree who did terribly. I just don't. How much value do you put into the coaching tree? Sure, there's some that are good examples, but there's also some that aren't.
Yeah, I put you gotta like put context to it. I think sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't. One, if you're talking about the Nick Saban coaching tree, you got some legs. I get it. First of all, there's a head coach, Doug Marrone, who was the head coach of the Jaguars a few years ago. He went to Alabama to be an offensive line coach. You have an NFL head coach coaching on the offensive line. So for that, I think it makes sense. The Bill Belichick one didn't work out. Matt Patricia didn't work. Um, I wouldn't call it the I wouldn't call it the Sean McVay coaching tree at this point. I would call it the Mike Shanahan coaching tree.
Yeah.
And that one seems to be working.
Yeah.
Immensely.
It's fair. Yeah, I remember I was reading like people are like, "Oh, the Atlanta Falcons, this, that." Like now they've got Morris as a coach, and he comes from this. I'm like, he was a quarterback coach. Like I'm sure he's not. It doesn't mean he's some genius. So that's just why I was asking you what your thoughts were on that.
No, yeah, I'm with you. I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Well, let's get into players that we're selling. So players who you're selling, fading, that their ADP is just way too good when it should be much higher in terms of they should be 100th instead of 50th.
Or lower.
Yeah, lower is kind of odd. It is lower in number means good, but
yeah, I get you.
Yeah, who is projecting to be a lot worse than their ADP says they are? Who's your number one, Josh?
Let me just are you sitting down?
I think I got the same one with that look in your eye. Does it start with does it start with a T?
No.
Oh, okay, good. Go ahead.
So now I hope it's not who I think it is. I'm fading, and this might surprise some people, but we'll get into it. I'm fading Christian McCaffrey.
Ooh, okay.
Now let me tell you why. One, there hasn't been a repeat number one overall fantasy running back in years. I'm talking like a decade. Like it's been a very long time since a number one running back has repeated his fantasy running back. His ADP is one across the board. Mm-hmm. If you play fantasy football, you're taking Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just how it's going to work. The other note on it is whether you believe in it or not, he's on the cover.
Oh,
he's on the cover of Madden. I mean, so lastly, I won't put too much emphasis on Madden. Who knows how that'll work?
Yeah.
Lastly, he's also 28 years old. As a running back, you start getting up there in age. The carry started taking a toll on that body. And speaking of which, he's got a history of injuries. He stayed relatively healthy last year, so I think that diminishes the likelihood of that happening this year. And I don't wish that on anyone. He's a Colorado kid. I saw him play for Valor Christian in Highlands Ranch against Mullen High School. It was an odd game. Wow. He lost. Ended up winning the championship. Yeah, so I'm a fan. Colorado kid, love him. Fading him as the number one overall pick.
Yeah, I like it. I miss the curse of the cover. I just Googled it. It looks like it's teetered off in the last 10 years, where for a while there it was incredible. Like it was a excommunicado. You were dying.
But circle back to this clip when the very unfortunate circumstance, if the Madden curse strikes again to Christian McCaffrey, fantasy players be warned, stay away.
Yeah, incredible. It's like they put Tom Brady on it a couple times, and then that was like, okay, they can't hurt Tom Brady, so
they broke the curse.
Yeah, it broke the curse. Wow, it's incredible. All right, so one of my first picks of players I'm fading, who I think will not do anywhere near as good as their ADP, is Travis Kelce. I am not on the Travis Kelce board. He is going number one tight end overall, as you can imagine, ADP 23. The guy's a legend. But big facts, Father Time is undefeated. He is 35 this year. He literally said last year he was in self-preservation mode to get through to the playoffs, which I am totally for. I get it. Mahomes should be doing the same thing. I think they were. They remind me a little bit of the Nuggets, where it's like the Joker doesn't give a shit about the regular season. Even LeBron, as he aged, it's like, just get me to the playoffs. That's what matters. We can coast, win 10, 11, 12 wins. Doesn't matter. We're going to crush teams. Which means for the regular season, I don't see Mahomes and Kelce doing incredible things. Mahomes, I think last year, he was like 7th or 5th QB for fantasy points. Also, Mahomes, my favorite athlete on earth, being Texas Tech alum, everyone out there. I'm not a hater. I love him. Here's a number for you. Travis Kelce was down 100 fantasy points from 2022 to 2023. He still led, but he was, 100 points less from a year ago. Not only that, he finished third in tight ends last year. These young tight ends coming up are incredible. He's never had to compete with the depth that there is at tight end this go around. So I don't know. Third overall in fantasy points last year. Why is he number one when he's just getting older? Some more self-preservation. These younger guys are blowing up.
That I just want to echo the sentiment of why I like that pick. One, you're a little bit of a hater. You know, the Swifties might come for you, so be careful. You know,
I was worried about that.
The depth of the tight end position this year is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, Kyle Pitts might have a really, really good year.
Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid in Buffalo, George Kittle, who's sometimes an afterthought, who's a killer. David Njoku, Evan Ingram. It's loaded of tight ends.
Yeah.
And Kelce is 35. Now, to be fair, Kelce's a beast, so I personally won't say anything against him. Like, you know, until he doesn't do it. But I get the pick.
Yeah, I think he's still going to win the Super Bowl. I just don't want him on my fantasy team at a number one overall tight end.
Very fair. Very fair. Cool. The next player that I am selling, and I kind of briefly touched on it earlier, is Anthony Richardson, the quarterback for the Colts.
Yes, I've got him on my list. We finally had a crossover.
Let's talk about it. First off, ESPN is going at 48 overall as a 6 top quarterback.
Wild.
I had him last year. I want to say he played in 5 games before he got hurt.
4 games, but he got hurt in 2 of them. So he basically played like 2.9 games total.
And he lit it up fantasy wise for a fair amount. A lot of it was rushing, a lot of rushing touchdowns, some decent passes. I just don't know if it's sustainable. I haven't seen enough of him. It's really high. Yeah. There was an article that came out in Bleacher Report recently where they had, like in preseason teams practice against each other. And the Bengals were killing him. They were like, yo, all he does is run the ball. And there's a D tackle who was like, yo, throw the ball, bro.
Yeah.
He finished a period of practice with them, 10 for 20, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And I'm like, yeah. And it goes to show, like, how much you base on the preseason, right? Mm-hmm. This is practice. So it's like, it's ones versus ones. Yeah. This is real football to me. I don't know. I'm out.
I've got numbers for you. Guess his completion percentage ranked last year for any quarterbacks who started at least 3 games.
So I personally like quarterbacks who have at least a high 60% completion rate.
Yeah, yeah. Guess where he ranked? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to guess his percentage. You want me to guess out of the top 32?
Out of the top quarterbacks, not even just out of all the quarterbacks that played. Yeah. What was his completion percentage?
I'm going to go. I think his completion percentage was 64, and he was 25th.
Anthony Richardson had the 49th best completion percentage in the entire NFL.
What was it?
I forget what it was, but it was bad.
49? There's only 32 teams in the NFL.
Only 32 teams, Josh. He was 49th in completion percentage. It is insane.
That's stressful.
Here's his QBR. 26.3 first game, 89, 63, 18 in his 4 games. That was his QBR.
Yeah.
Guess his college completion percentage in the 1 season.
He ran the ball. He ran the ball in college.
But, you still throw, right? So it's not even – running the ball doesn't go against your completion percentage. So surely if people are nervous about you running, what do you think his completion percentage was in college where they throw the ball much better and easier?
Completion percentages are typically higher. I'm 65?
58%. Guess where he ranked in the country?
Oh, no. I'm nervous to hear that.
I couldn't find any details past 100, but just so you know, he was far past what, like, it capped at 100. He was not, and 100 was like 62%. He was 58%. So if you did some quick math, he was like 150% or 150th like ranking or more in the country in college.
That's sad. You know what? I think one, he's a freak athlete. I hope if he gets the right coaching, he could be really good. He could be Cam Newton.
No, he can't, Josh. Want to know why?
That's his ceiling. His floor is Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah. He went 6-7 as a starter. He only started 13 games, which is really weird. I've gone off like
all right, here's my question. Do you have anything positive to say about the man?
He can do a backflip standing. Josh.
That's impressive.
Josh, you want to tell me, like, that was a big thing last summer. This guy did a backflip, a standing backflip. Josh, how many of your Super Bowl quarterbacks can do a standing backflip?
One.
Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger. Even Lamar might be able to into like a pool, but I'm sure he's not going to try it.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Like,
well, we're on the same page. And the crazy thing is, I have him in a keeper league, and I got him for like, it was an auction. I got him for like $2.
Yeah. And the last thing, I don't want to pile on him, but he was at Florida, so like, let's not pretend he went to Texas Tech or Iowa State or some B-tier school. He had talent around him. He had Ricky Pearsall, who went in second round of the draft.
I think it was first.
Yeah, first round. So I don't know. Also, funny enough, I won't pile on, but one last fun nugget, just because I really dove into my hatred of the fantasy quarterback that is Anthony Richardson, not him as a person. Ricky Pearsall had 48 receptions at ASU in 2021, which ironically, Jaden Daniels was his quarterback.
Wait, Ricky Pearsall went to ASU?
And Jaden Daniels was his quarterback, yeah.
I know Jaden Daniels was Brandon Ayuk's quarterback at ASU, which is like mind-blowing.
Right?
Like, one guy's up for a new contract because he's been in the league for 5 years, and the other guy's brand new Ricky. That's
brand new.
Crazy.
So ASU, he had 48 receptions. The next year, with Richardson throwing in balls, he had 33 receptions. Then this past year, which I don't know who the Florida quarterback was off the top of my head.
Graham Mertz.
65 receptions. So he went 48, 33, 65, and Richardson seemed to be the common denominator of, the negativity.
Oh, we're on the same page. So watch this guy blow up and be the number one fantasy quarterback.
He's absolutely going to destroy it. I've got some crazy rain. Can you hear it on your side?
Oh, yeah, I guess I kind of can.
Okay.
I didn't know what that was.
I'm trying to mute. Yeah, I'm just trying to mute my the sound a little bit so and let you talk.
It sounds like that little machine you use to go to sleep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like that. So Anthony Richardson, we got that. Let's go to the next one then on my end. A player I'm fading vastly. 1A, 1B of my bus in general, but also in fantasy. Jaden Daniels, which we have talked on this podcast before about. He's being drafted as QB 12, ADP 118. I think he's going to finish outside QB 25. I went on before, so I won't bore you too much, but he was projected a day 3 selection 2 drafts ago. I guess the 2023 draft would be. Now, of course, picked high, had one absolutely incredible year, playing against 17, 18, and 19-year-olds in college while he's 22 years old. He's just, if me and you played at age 22 against ourselves who were 17, 18, and 19, we'd kick the shit out of ourselves. I just never I said the same thing about who was a quarterback in the Big 12 years ago, and they went to the Browns. White dude. He was incredible. He went to Oklahoma State.
Oh, Brandon Wheaton?
Yeah, Brandon Wheaton. Incredible. I'm like, that dude is 27 playing against infants. What are we doing here? This isn't as egregious as Brandon Wheaton, but I had the same thoughts. He's also tiny. He is a freak athlete, but he's little. I think they in college he was 185. Now they say he's 210 at the combine. But I think kind of like a UFC fighter or a boxer gains or loses weight. I think he bulked up for the combine. So his playing weight, I bet, is in the 200 range, 205, not 210. My my point on that,
I'm
Michael Vick.
interested.
Mm-hmm.
You think he's like Michael Vick?
No. Michael Vick weighed the same, was 4 inches shorter. Bryce Young is 5 pounds less and is 6 inches shorter. I just think size, like his length, he's just like, and I'm not body shaming. He looks great. I wish I was tall, fit, super athlete, incredible like him. He takes some crazy hits. Unless he slides 100% of the time, I don't see him lasting.
Yeah. I mean, I think as he, matures, he'll put on some grown man weight. I'm not worried about his slenderness. Now, they better teach him to just fucking get down when running. But I think he's good. He sold me. I didn't like him at ASU. He proved me wrong. So I don't have anything bad to say about him.
He proved you wrong in 1 year where he had 2 first-round wide receivers. The offensive tackle he had last year is going to go top 3 overall in the draft next year. His O-line was one of the best in the country. I've got other things on him. I saw a stat actually. So Daniels scrambled on a quarter of his snaps where he saw pressure, and that was the second highest rate out of any college QB in the past 10 years, behind Trey Lance. So Trey Lance, Daniels. I can pile on more.
Trey Lance is buried on the Dallas Cowboys depth chart right now. Well, man, might be he's a cut target.
Yep, he is. So I could go on, but I'm just against Jaden Daniels. You can see more faneverland.com if you want to see my whole rant. I ranted enough on Anthony Richardson, and I feel bad, so I don't want to be a negative asshole too much on these incredible athletes who are 10 times richer and more gifted and better at what they do than I am.
And better looking.
Whoa.
All right, dope. I have a twofer for my last one. I'll do it quick. I already mentioned one. I'm selling guys who burned me last year. So if you were on my fantasy team and you didn't do well enough, I'm not drafting you. I don't care what your ADP is. And that is Calvin Ridley for multiple reasons. I don't believe in anything the Tennessee Titans have going on. I don't think he's going to do well. Love the guy. I thought he was going to blow up at Jacksonville coming off a year of suspension, and it was going to be amazing. Not quite that. And if he's a number 2 in Tennessee behind DeAndre Hopkins, don't think it's going to bear the fruit. And the second one, this one is probably a hotter take. Chris Olave.
Ooh, why?
Fading you, bro. Fading you.
Just because he burned you last year?
He burned me last year, and I don't think it was like a one-off. I think it was more just the system that they have. One, I think Dennis Allen's one of the worst NFL coaches ever, and I don't like the quarterback. What's the quarterback's name in New Orleans?
Oh, Derek Carr. Yeah.
Now, Derek Carr had some good rapport with Devontae Adams. Obviously, they went to college together, so a different dynamic. It just didn't develop last year. And sometimes quarterbacks need a year with a receiver to get comfortable with each other. Everyone's pushing Rashid Shaheed as the real sleeper and guy that you want in New Orleans. But I just got burnt, and so it's hard for me to go back to the well.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was going to ask you, but it slipped my mind. Yeah, that makes sense. I like Olave, but I guess if you don't, you don't. If he burned you. Oh, that's what I was going to say. You're big on social media. You're big into social media. What was that crazy meme or stat about how Derek Carr kills wide receivers? Like he's like what was that thing where just whatever he brings along, like the quarterback or the wide receivers went to jail, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So Henry Ruggs went to jail.
Yeah.
Derek Carr like texted him like the night before. Um, yeah, I don't know the meme exactly, but I do know that that is
Okay.
the guy.
He went.
Cryptic.
He had Antonio Brown with the Raiders, Michael Thomas, Henry Ruggs, and Chris Olave, and shit all happened to all those guys.
Yeah, yeah. So like I was saying,
Hmm.
it's one, I got burnt, and two, it's a quarterback situation. Will Levis and Derek Carr. Those aren't guys I'm putting stock in for getting the ball to guys I need to score me points.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee's offense is going to be bad too. By the way, like I don't know what they have, but they don't have it.
I think they're going to be the worst offense in the league. So.
Ooh, no, the Raiders.
Yeah. All right. All right.
I think the Raiders are going to have the number one overall pick, and they're going to draft Sugar Sanders.
All right. That's fair. I like
Bookmark
that
it
pick.
for June 2025.
All right. I'm all for it. I'm a big Shadur fan, as I guess you are being a Colorado person. My next one is Devon Achane. I pronounced that right, correct?
I think it's Achane,
Achane. Okay, Devon Achane.
but it looks like it's pronounced A-Chain for years, and then he came out and said it's A-Chain.
And then also Devon's kind of hard. Like if it, it's a D-E apostrophe capital V. So I'm working with a lot here.
Listen, I want to hear this take. Just for starters, I disagree completely. So
Okay.
please let me have it.
For the record, if our friend Clay didn't go there, I would be I already am an absolute anti-Miami Dolphins person. They're my most hated team because two of my friends are Dolphins fans, and I lead the charge of Tua as the most overrated, worst quarterback ever. Now that our dear friend is there, I lost a lot of material that I can't say.
No, it's more like, no, Tua's all right.
Yeah, right. So I just can't do what I want to do to Tua and to the Dolphins and fade them. I am fading them, but not as harshly as I would be if Calais wasn't there. But this one's a nice thing. It's not even anything against Achan. It's more he's being drafted RB13. I think he's gonna be in a full blown 3-way timeshare. He had 5 games where he absolutely blew up. They were all blowout games, which I think like 3 or 4 were blowouts by the Dolphins, and 1 or 2 were their game blown out. So it wasn't like it was ever in these hot, highly contested games that he was doing his damage. And I think when it does matter, like push comes to shove, they're going to be obviously going with what's his name? What's the main running back in Miami?
Mostert.
Yeah, I think it'll be on Mostert when push comes to shove. So unless he breaks out on something big, he's not getting these RB13 points. I still think he'll do good, and he'll have the odd 75-yard run or have a couple big games. I just don't see him as like RB13. That's elite starter, not elite. That's legit starter status. And I don't see it happening. Not because he's not talented. He also gets injured a lot. Not the biggest guy. So this isn't shade at him. I just don't think he's RB13. I think he's like top 25, which is still fine, but it's not. He's incredible, if that makes sense. And they spread the ball around a lot. I just don't think a 3-way timeshare, he's going to be an RB13.
Here's my question. And stay with me because we're going to go for this.
Yeah.
Do you ever heard of a guy named Reggie Bush?
Yes, I'm quite familiar with Reggie Bush. He actually slept with my ex-girlfriend.
Your congrats?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like him.
Okay, whatever. Reggie Bush, he played 11 years in the NFL. That is a stellar career. Granted, who he was at USC versus who he was in the NFL, two completely different things. Just take a guess. How many plus 40-yard rushes did Reggie Bush have in his NFL career?
I couldn't even. If you told me it was 10 or 60 or 80 or 150, I would have no idea like where it even. So I'm going to say 64.
The answer is 11.
11. Oh,
wow. Now, how many plus 40-yard rushes did Achane have in his rookie year?
5.
The answer is 11.
Wow.
Josh McDaniels, I've learned this since our friend has gone to play for Miami. One, they're a running team. They run the ball. Tua's best plays come off of play action. He's not a straight up drop back, pick the teams apart. They are a running team. Second, Raheem Mostert gets injured profusely, unfortunately. Like, I'm a big fan. He's one of the fastest, most elusive running backs I've seen in a while. He just has a injury history. So for Achane to be the number 2 there, he has 11 40-plus yard rushes in his rookie year alone, a second year in the system. I think he could have a breakout year, to be honest with you, and take over the reins next year. So if you're in a keeper league, I would get him and ride it out and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm anti the Dolphins' offense. Their defense is incredible. Oh my God, they're going to be so good on defense. But their offense, I think, is overrated.
It might be the opposite, to be honest. So is this more Miami hate than Achane disdain?
No, I think when push comes to shove, Miami doesn't get it done on offense. They beat up on the 10 worst defenses. If you look back the last 2 years, their first 10 weeks of the season, lights out. But everything's scripted. I read something that the first X number of plays are scripted, and that's when Tua does his business. But once it's not scripted, he falls apart. Once you have to make decisions, hold the ball.
Yeah.
Like, make the throw.
So interesting you point that out. That's a Mike Shanahan thing where he would script the first 15 plays of the game. They'd practice those all week, so the quarterback is like comfortable in those 15 plays. Josh McDaniels Mike McDaniels went. He did an interview recently with Kay, formerly of Good Morning Football. And he was saying that, he's grown so much as a play caller. There's so much that you learn on the job versus just watching, and he's getting so much better. And so, to your point, I put that more on him as a play caller for falling apart outside of those scripted 15 than so much on Tua.
Yeah, no, I just think Tua, once he doesn't know where, it's almost like McDaniels is playing Madden, and he's like, Tua, throw here, Tua, throw here, Tua, throw here. But the second has his own controller, it goes to shit. And we see it come November. So the first 10 games, the last few years, they've always played 80% of the games against the 10 worst defenses in the league. And then come the end of the game, the end of the year, they play some actual teams, and we see what happens. They fall apart. They're not the same team.
We'll see.
Transition noise made by me. We had to cut this one short as a rainstorm just absolutely demolished outside my place. I live in Costa Rica now, so I'm kind of at mercy of the weather here for podcasts, so I apologize. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll make sure no more mic issues. FanEverland.com for all your fantasy, regular football needs, and sports. Enjoy. Fraser Will Bay Podcast. Talk to you soon.